What's going on, y'all? It's JD Piquel. Today on the Hard Count, what's going wrong at Oklahoma? Welcome into 365 Sports, the place that has you covered 24/7, 365 for all things college sports, especially right now, the best time of year, college football season. Now, we've teased it a little bit. There will be a new channel that this show specifically will be moving to. So keep your subscription here to 365 Sports. However, CFB with JD will be coming in the very, very near future. So that's what the channel is going to be called. It's going to be all things college football, not just in college football season, but also once we exit college football season, enter the dark days of the Februarys, the Marches, the April, all that. We will have you covered. So keep an eye out for that. Want you to go ahead and transition as well along with us when we move the Hard Count to that channel. So this channel will stay the same. Subscribe here. Moving to another channel, subscribe there as well. It'll be a great time. What's wrong with Oklahoma? That is the question that I have posed for today's video. Is Oklahoma, they're 3-0. They're 3-0, but they're not a very convincing 3-0. They've really limped out to this 3-0 start. Anyone who's watched them and compared their performance with the preseason expectations, it just does not look like the Oklahoma team we thought we would see. I mean, they kind of limped in a win against Nebraska last week. They got a very sluggish start against Tulane in the opening week. Now, they had a phenomenal game. I think they scored like 76 points against an FCS opponent, so we're not going to talk about that. And that's great. They did what they're supposed to do against a lesser opponent. But if you talked about Oklahoma in the preseason, it was like they were the Monstars. Like they were going to come in, break every offensive record, tear through the Big 12, tear through their non-conference. Like they were going to be it in the college football landscape. Spencer Rattler was going to win the Heisman. We had already pretty much given it to him in the preseason. He was going to break every record. It was going to be Spencer Rattler and everybody else. And now, looking at what they've done so far, you're like, well, let's revisit that for a little bit. Let's take a look at this, because this does not look like the Oklahoma team we thought we would see. Looked extremely lackluster, like I mentioned. Beat Nebraska last week 23-16, so by a score. Beat Tulane, a non-Power 5 opponent, 40-35. It needed their defense to help them a little bit to stop them on fourth down after they didn't recover an onside kick. Spencer Rattler threw 2 picks, should have been 3. Like this is not the Oklahoma team we all thought we were going to see in the preseason. To compare those opponents against some other competition, Tulane got demolished by Ole Miss by 40 points. You're telling me apparently one of the college football playoff teams at Oklahoma can only beat them by a score, by 5 points? Then Nebraska got beat by Illinois. And Illinois is a good football team, but for them to only beat them by the same margin, I mean, Nebraska got beat by Illinois by 8 points. Oklahoma beat them by 7 points. Not the same margin, but virtually the same, one score. We expect more out of Oklahoma. And so what is going on at Oklahoma is the question. Why are they not looking as dominant as they should? Well, I think the first thing, it starts with Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler statistically has been fine. I mean, he's thrown 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, around 700 yards. Take away that game, though, against the FCS opponent, and you have a QBR of about 74, which is really average. If you're supposed to win the Heisman Trophy, you should be substantially higher than that. And also, he doesn't take great care of the football. I know he's got the 2 interceptions, which 2 interceptions through 3 games isn't horrific, but if you look at the decisions he's making with the football, there's a lot of times where Spencer Rattler is putting the ball into jeopardy. And we talked about that before he got benched a year ago. It was, okay, Spencer Rattler's so much talent, so much ability, but he gets greedy with the football. He puts his team in position to potentially have a spot. Well, let me rephrase this. He puts his team in a disadvantage when he tries to throw the ball in double coverage, when he tries to gamble and take chances. And he's successful for a lot of ways because he has that confidence, but in the same token, when you put your team in jeopardy because you want to try and stretch the ball downfield another 30 yards when you have your check down, that's going to come back and bite you against good opponents. And we saw that a year ago. We haven't seen it just yet because they've played Tulane and they've played Nebraska. No knock on those programs, but by talent alone, Oklahoma should be blowing those teams out of the water. It's just the fact of the matter. So I think you got to look at Spencer Rattler. I think also you have to look at the rest of the offense, because this running game has been good, but not necessarily great. The defense, in the same token, hasn't been as dominant as we projected. I expected Alex Grinch in this third year to just be taking over things. I didn't expect Tulane to score 35 points. So the defense looked better a week ago against Nebraska. but still not nearly to the level, not nearly to the expectation that we assumed they would be. So I look at culture. As a culture, what's going on in Oklahoma? Because you were told all season long, all offseason long, how you were going to be the best team pretty much outside of Alabama. That's not impacting your team. That's not anything within the locker room. That's not anything where guys are hurt or where there's some kind of ability drop off. That's all your approach. That is 100% your approach. And I don't want to give an excuse here to Oklahoma of, oh, you know what, they'll pick it up, because they may pick it up. But I don't want to give them the excuse of, well, you know, they've been told they're so good all offseason and now they're just kind of starting to get back to earth. You know who else was told they're good all offseason? Alabama. They have a new quarterback. They've got a lot of guys playing different positions. They have the expectations every single year of you're going to win the national championship. They're looking pretty dominant. They came out and handled business against Miami, handled business against Florida. They're being fed the same rat poison as Oklahoma down there in Tuscaloosa. You know what's different, though? The culture. The culture is different in Alabama. And so I'm not telling you Oklahoma has to be Alabama. I'm not saying that. But a lot of y'all over the offseason were saying that Oklahoma was going to win the national championship. Saying it was going to be Oklahoma, Alabama going toe-to-toe. So if that's the standard, I'm telling you what the standard is at Alabama, and they're having no problem meeting that year in and year out. So I think they've maybe been reading their press clippings just a little bit too much. Going back to Spencer Rattler, if you look at the Oklahoma teams that have been dominant, let's say dominant, the teams that have been really, really good, they've had really, really good quarterbacks, but even more, they've had an alpha male at quarterback. Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield gets kind of a raw deal in that regard, but he was a team guy. Like those players loved him. And I'm not saying Spencer Rattler isn't loved by his team, but I'm still waiting for Spencer Rattler to say, okay, this is my team. This is my team. I'm taking over. Follow me. Get on my back. Because I don't get that sense from Spencer Rattler when I watch him. Ability, has it in spades. Arguably, I would say next to Kyler Murray, he's the most talented of that group. Like, there's nothing that Spencer Rattler can't do on a football field. It's all between the ears for me. And that's also kind of the murmurs you hear from people close to Oklahoma. This isn't just some narrative that I'm making up because I watched QB1. That told me quite a bit about him as a high school senior, but this is also murmurs that you're hearing inside the Oklahoma program, is that Spencer Rattler, from an intangible standpoint, potentially leaves some to be desired. Now, I'm not in that locker room. I'm not on staff there. There's a lot that is reported that isn't true sometimes, but for there to be smoke, there's usually fire. So for Spencer Rattler, take hold of your team. Take hold of this culture, because the best teams are run by the players. Lincoln Riley's a phenomenal coach. He's going to have his pick of the litter when it comes to NFL jobs year in and year out for the most part. I say pick of the litter, pick of available jobs. He's always going to be in that conversation. He's a great coach, has done a lot of great things at Oklahoma, and they're indebted to him for a lot of their success. To the same token, great teams have great leadership, and I'm still waiting on Spencer Rattler to exemplify that. Now, he may be the man in the locker room. I don't know. But like I said, where there's smoke, there's fire. The sense that I get from him watching him play, watching the way his teammates interact with him, I think there's potentially cause for concern. So bottom line, they need to kind of pick it up. Like, that's probably goes without saying, they need to pick it up, but you can't sleepwalk like you have against Tulane and Nebraska and expect to beat a team like Iowa State, expect to beat a team like TCU. What I've seen so far, going back to culture, Oklahoma likes to play down to whatever their competition level is, right? Like, Tulane shouldn't be 5 points within Oklahoma. Nebraska shouldn't be a score within Oklahoma, but they were. Why? Because Oklahoma didn't bring their A game. Oklahoma decided to kind of take their time, get comfortable, find their rhythm. You can't do that against teams like TCU, teams like Texas even, depending on how Texas wants to play that day. Texas has their own problems. We'll get into that in a later time. But that really, really speaks to me how much needs to be fixed at Oklahoma. And like I said, they may get it together. They may be a team like they were last year. They started out, I think it was 0-2 and kicked it up and ended up playing Florida in the New Year's Six Bowl. Did more than play Florida. Took Florida to the woodshed in New Year's Six Bowl. That could be the case for them. But to meet the expectations that are set against them right now, which is a national title, that's what a lot of people in college football media are saying, is Oklahoma is poised for national title. At least they were saying that before the season started. Who knows if they're backtracking that now. You can't sleepwalk anymore. For Oklahoma, the alarm is off. The alarm should be going off. Got to wake up. Got to play some ball. And so I would love to see Spencer Rattler take over this team, be the quarterback, that you know he can be, and for this team to follow him. That's it for us here at the Hard Count. Appreciate you tuning in. Again, this show will be moving to CFB with JD in the very near future. That channel is live. Go ahead and subscribe to that in the comment section. There's no videos on there yet. It's going to be moving there in the near future. Appreciate you all. We will keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.